All right, now I'm going to recap a little of what we started with yesterday, because I know there are new people and I want us to get the context in which why we're presenting the first presentation today. John saw in the middle of the book of Revelation, you recall, Earth's final events, and he saw these three beasts that we're looking at, and we're going to unravel who these beasts represent as we proceed. These form, we notice, a sort of a global world order. I want us to read this again so we get the context of why we're going to say things today. Then I saw a beast, that's the sea beast, rising up out of the sea. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth. That's that lamb-like beast, which speaks like a dragon in the end. He exercises all the authority of the first beast, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. This is going to be the end time scenario. Now, what is the end game or the goal of the global control of these three powers? It is global worship, we mentioned, which is a rather a surprising factor for many people. How come worship is the issue? But I want you to notice that's highlighted by John in the book of Revelation. All the world marveled and followed the beast, so they worshipped the dragon, who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast. That's the sea beast. Now he says, he, the land beast, the lamb-like one, causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast. Very clear. And the result is destruction for those who worship the three beasts, and especially the dragon. Hence, three angels are sent by God in the book of Revelation to counter the messages of those three beasts. Notice the first message. I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea and the springs of water. No, don't worship the dragon, don't worship the sea beast, worship the Creator God. And that's why I wanted us to get that little bit before we move on. Now, to worship the Creator God, obviously, we need to understand, well, does God actually even exist? That's why I want to go down this track today. Because it's all very well to talk about God. There are many people who do that, but many don't even think He actually exists. So I want to give us some evidence today for the fact that God is real. This time from science, and we're going to see very clearly that there is a God. Science is actually changing its mind, many scientists today, on this idea. 6 evidences. We've had about 3 of them already, and we'll have 2 or 3 today. I think it's just 2 we're going to share. 4 yesterday. Time magazine, front cover story back in about 1960-something, Is God Dead? And the reason for the front cover issue back then was because it was felt that science had sort of put God to rest, that we came from evolutionary processes, so God is out of a job. In fact, He doesn't even exist. And so we're going to notice evolution, of course, teaches that we all came from the slime pond, that's in a nutshell, and we progressed through 4.5 billion years to where you are there pretty on your seat and I'm up the front. We have arrived. That's basically the idea, of course. Now, there are 2 opposing theories of origins, and they're both theories. They can't be proved. In the end, it boils down to belief, but belief based on evidence. And that's what we're going to share today. The first of the 2 main theories of origins is this one: Christ created everything in 6 days. New and Old Testament point that out. Number 1, Paul writing to his friends in Colossae, for by Him, by Jesus, all things were created that are in heaven, that are on earth, visible and invisible. And then from the 10 Commandments, written with the finger of God, the 4th commandment states, in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. And that seems preposterous to many people based on what people are saying, many from the scientific community. Now, Darwinian evolution, of course, its viewpoint is this, that everything came into being by time plenty of time, the more time the better, and by chance, and what we call the survival of the fittest in a nutshell. And that's how we came to be. These are the two main ideas of how we came into being. Darwinian evolution, basically from monkey to man. Now, the result of that is that many people today do not even believe that there is a God. You see, up until about 200 years ago, almost everybody believed in some sort of a god or gods, whether it was Hinduism, Buddhism, Muhammad, whatever it was, Christianity. Most people believed in a god, but that has changed because of mainly the theory of evolution. So is God real? Let's look at the evidence. I'm going to look first of all at the evidence from nature, what we find here. Now, going back to the Bible, this is the claim of the Bible regarding nature. Paul is talking to his friends in Rome, because what may be known of God is manifest in them. For God has shown it to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his characteristics, are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and godhood, so they are without excuse. In other words, in a nutshell, Paul is saying, you just need to look out in nature and see what's out there and realize somebody made all this. And somebody has our best interests at heart. Let's talk about the Big Bang for a moment. Now, the Big Bang, of course, is what many scientists today believe is how the universe came into existence. But this was not always the case. In fact, around about 1950, thereabouts, scientists changed their view from this. They believed, at one point up to 1950, thereabouts, they believed that the universe always was. It never had a beginning. It always just was. That was the belief back then. But then they noticed from the 1950s on that the universe is expanding. You see, galaxies are moving away from each other. So therefore the idea was, well, if they're moving away from each other, there must have been a time when they were all together and they just spread out from there, and hence the Big Bang. So now scientists believe that the universe had a beginning. Matter, energy, space and time had a beginning. It started at some point in time. So many scientists believe that before the Big Bang, there was nothing. The universe came from nothing, some say. But you can't get something from nothing. Philosophers will tell you, for every effect, there must be a cause. Science says that too. For every effect, there must be a cause. But for some strange reason, the idea is it must have come from nothing, because sadly, many don't want to acknowledge that there may be somebody out there. But scientists today are discovering exactly what the Bible said a long time ago, that the universe had a beginning. The Bible starts out this way: in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. You know, someone put it this way. I was reading a book about it. Scientists, first of all, thought the universe was eternal. And then they realised that it's expanding, and as they climbed to the top of the hill, the mountain, there they met up there a bunch of theologians who'd been up there for centuries. They knew that there was a beginning from the Bible. And so we've arrived at that point. Let's talk about design in nature now. You can't have art without an artist. That's obvious. You can't have a building without an architect and a builder. You can't even have a music without a musician behind it all. But for some very strange reason, human beings since the last 200 years have believed that all this happened by chance. That which is far more complex than anything any human being has ever created on the planet, we believe, or I should say many believe, that it just happened by time and chance. But now scientists, many of them, are changing their mind on that. Because number one, the fine-tuned universe. Our universe is very fine-tuned for life on this planet. Let me share with you some things that scientists have noticed. There are very precise physical constants in nature. and these support life on Earth. In actual fact, they've now discovered hundreds of them, and we'll share just a few of those now. Here's a couple of very simple ones. The size of our Earth. If we were just slightly smaller or larger, there could be no life on this planet. Just a fraction bigger, a fraction smaller, no life. How about this one? The distance between the Earth and the Sun. If we were any closer, all the water would evaporate. And you need water to have life. That's a given. If we were any further away, all the water would freeze, and that wouldn't be good for you either, because water is vital for your blood and everything else in your body. How about this? There's our nice big sun. It's pretty whopping compared to all the other planets. Here is our Earth, and here is Jupiter and Saturn. They're not sitting there for fun now, scientists realise. They were put there, evidently, they're beginning to think, some of them, because if it weren't for these two planets, we would be smashed to pieces by asteroids. Their gravity pulls them, the size of them pulls the meteoroids to them and not to us. So you can be thankful for those two planets or you'd be squashed. Wouldn't be good news for us. Our moon. It's the largest moon in the solar system. Bigger than the moons of Jupiter and so on, the largest moon in the solar system. Now this is important because it helps Earth not to wobble on its axis. That means you just wouldn't shake all day, but other things wouldn't be good for us if Earth was going to wobble on its axis. The right size also, of course, it causes the vital tides. Imagine if the moon was bigger, well then maybe we would be underwater right now here in this room, because of the fact that the moon helps those tides, and that's very important for the environment. Next one, Earth's position in our Milky Way galaxy. Let's move out further into space. If we were any nearer the centre, scientists now realise, we would all get radiated. You'd be fried by some of those rays that move through. We'd all have cancer or something. Next one, if we were any further away from the centre of the Milky Way galaxy, we wouldn't have any atmosphere. So you'd be struggling for air right now. You're just in the right position in our big galaxy for life. Here's another one. The universe has 1 trillion galaxies. Try counting that for your rest of your life. You would run out of years, let me tell you, by a long shot. 1 trillion galaxies, there are 100 billion stars in each of those galaxies, and this is what they've discovered. We would have no life if just one Aussie dollar less mass, we would not have life. Just one Aussie dollar in all of those trillion galaxies and 100 billion, we would not have life. That's how fine-tuned we are for life on this planet. Here are the 4 forces of the universe. Don't worry about them too much. We all know the first one, gravity. Then there's a thing called strong nuclear force, a weak nuclear force, and finally the electromagnetic force. If any of those things were set slightly different in the way they're tweaked, we couldn't have life here in our world, and the universe wouldn't exist. Here's one more. This one's a fancy one. They're called the cosmological constant. That means it's the energy density of the universe, the energy density. How about this? There would be no life on this planet if it was different by just 1/10 with 120 zeros after it. Now, if you're a gambling person, you're not going to go there, are you? This is not 1 in 2. 1/10 with 120 zeros after. If it was just that much different, there would be no life. Now, scientists, as I said, they've discovered hundreds now, hundreds of these universal constants, and no life if any one of those things was slightly pushed. Just one of them was slightly different, sorry, that's it's all over. Now, that's why scientists today, many of them are saying, hey, there's a designer out there. This universe is so fine-tuned for life. It just didn't happen. It's just amazing. All right, a designer behind it all. Now, the Bible puts it this way: the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament shows his handiwork. That's what Paul was talking about. Just have a look out there in nature. And if we're open-minded, we have to come to the conclusion that there's somebody out there who's designed all this. Here's another one. Coded language. Every one of us have DNA in our cells all over our body. DNA is a code, coded language. You see here are the DNA bits and pieces here. They're what we call nucleotide bases. Doesn't matter what they are, forget it for now. But that's a code. And that DNA codes is coded for different proteins in your body. Different way it's put together, different proteins you're going to have that you need. Now, coded DNA code, that's a language. Now, everybody knows that behind language is what? There is mind behind language. It's programmed by someone. Language has intelligence behind it, and that's why biochemists are saying, come on now, we've got this coded language for all of us, and someone's behind to put that code together. That's the point. Behind the stuff in your computer, there's been a mind. Well, that's what they're saying. Same thing here. A designer. This is an interesting one. This is Michael Behe. Now, many of these guys are evolutionists, by the way, that are finding this out. It's just that now they can see something's wrong with Darwinian evolution. It's not got it all. Something's wrong here. That's what they're finding as they're looking. Michael Behe, an evolutionist, he discovered what he calls irreducible complexity. He quotes, first of all, in his book from Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin said, if it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. Now, Behe gives an illustration to help us all get our head around what he's just said. He says, take the mousetrap here. It's irreducibly complex. You see, which part of the mousetrap could you do without and have it still catch mice? Maybe we could do without the base. Well, then the whole thing would flop all over the place and wouldn't catch mice. Maybe we could do without the hammer. Then the poor old mouse wouldn't get cut on the head, you know, and killed. How about not having the spring? No, you need all those parts. You can't gradually develop a mousetrap and have it catch mice. That's the point. You can't just have the base there and the mouse is going to lie down. I'm caught. No. You've got to have all the bits and pieces there at once, at the same time, if you want to catch mice. That's his illustration. So he says, now we've found, thanks to biochemistry, we have now found many irreducibly complex systems in nature. All the parts had to be there because things work at the chemical level at the end of everything. All right, so let's have a look at a couple. Some systems exist, says Behe. Blood clotting. We take it for granted that when we cut ourselves, the blood's going to, clot there so we don't bleed to death. Now, Behe says this is irreducibly complex. It's all very well to look at that and just see a bunch of blood there coagulated, but you've got to look at the chemicals. So here we go. It's amazing. I remember studying this at UWA. It blew me away. I thought, whoa, these are all proteins, most of these here. Right? So when you cut yourself, it activates this protein, which activates this one, which activates this one, and if you miss one of those proteins, you're in trouble. You're going to bleed to death. You've got to have them all there at the same time. Whether you're a mouse or whatever you are, you need the things in place for your blood to clot. Irreducibly complex. Here's another one, the eye. The idea was, well, a gnat's eye gets better in a frog and gets better in a cat and it gets better in, and so on and so forth. You gradually develop a better and better eye. No. Behe says sight is produced by chemicals at the end of the day. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a fly's eye or our eye, it's the chemicals that make you see at the end. It's irreducibly complex. All the chemicals must be present or you're not going to see, full stop. Next one. Well, that's it. Well, maybe share with you one more without any illustration there. The sperm tail. That's just one illustration. In your body, there are lots of hairs lining your bronchi and so on and so forth that wave all the dust particles back so you don't, get your lungs gunked up. Those little hairs, cilia and so on, they are actually a motor. That thing is a chemical motor. And you miss any of those chemicals, you're going to be in trouble. You've got to have them all there, no matter what the animal is. You don't gradually develop those things. And so Behe goes into a lot of trouble showing about that. Anyway, let's move on. This is interesting the way the Bible puts it. You see, by the word of the Lord were the heavens made, for he spoke and it came to be. He commanded and it stood fast. He just said, boom, because you need all your parts right from the start, not gradually developing them from one animal to another till we get to our point. No, he spoke and it came to be. Now here's another interesting one. I think it was the New York Times back in the 90s reported on the fact that biochemists were saying there's something wrong with Darwinian evolution. And it's got even worse as time goes on because thanks to biochemistry. But the mathematicians said, hey, there's something wrong with the sums here. The maths don't work out. Evidence from probability. They said they don't add up. So let's just talk about that for a moment. Our bodies are made of proteins. You've got your hair, you've got your muscle fibres, your hemoglobin. We're just proteins everywhere in our body. Heaps of them. Now each protein is put together by joining a bunch of amino acids. All right, so let's put it up here. We won't get too technical here, but our proteins are made from little amino acids, little chemicals, all right? A bit like putting bits and pieces of Lego together. The way you put them together makes a different building and so on and so forth. So we have 22 different amino acids that we use as human beings. And your proteins, the different proteins because different order of amino acids and different amino acids sometimes. The order in which they're put determines what protein it's going to be. So here we go, a bunch of these amino acids, and list a few of them here. These are each amino acids, these little circles. Now, the mathematicians say an average size protein, about 100 amino acids, the Lego makes a building, a city there. Okay. An average protein, about 100 amino acids. What's the probability that they could all just get together by chance? What's that probability and make a protein? Well, here's the probability that the mathematicians have worked out. One chance in 1,268 with a bunch of zeros after, 127 zeros. The chances of it just happening is that. You're a gambling person? Sorry, you're in big trouble. All right. So they say, well, let's make it easier. Let's make it easier so these amino acids could just get together by chance, just one of them. I'm not talking about hundreds, just one. Let's make the whole planet full of amino acids. That's all there is. So the whole world is full of amino acids all right through, so they can easily get hold of them. What's the chances now? Well, the chances now are 1 in 388 with 80 zeros up. Well, that's better than 127 zeros, but if you're a gambling person, that's way off still, isn't it? Just not going to happen. All right, now the mathematicians say, well, look, the suggested evolutionary time is 4.5 billion years for life. So we've got 4.5 billion years, a whole planet full of amino acids. Let's see if during that 4.5 billion years we could get one to get together in the right order. Just one. Now what do they say? Mathematicians say the chance of getting one correct is impossible. Why do they say that? Well, because you see, each protein would have to rearrange itself that many times per second. That's faster than the speed of light by a long shot. They'd have to do it that fast, and chemicals can't go that fast, chemical reactions. Because you see that what they're saying is we've got 4.5 billion years to get one of these things together, 100 amino acids together. Oh, we didn't get it right. Oh, we got it wrong again. Start again. Oh, I missed again. Oh, still haven't got. So you've got to go like that for 4.5 billion years, but you can't go that fast. Chemicals don't get put together that fast. So the mathematicians say, come on, this is impossible physically and chemically. Now, to make matters worse, in your cells, it takes 75 different proteins to make one protein in your body. So what you've got to get is one protein by chance to get together, but you've got to get 75 together at the same time by chance. Now, come on. You know, that's why the mathematicians say, forget it. This is living in la-la land, you know. It's just ridiculous where we're heading or where we've got to. It's much easier to say there must have been someone who designed this. Okay, and someone has once said, you know, it's a bit like we got a bunch of junk in a junkyard, and suddenly all by itself, it just popped into becoming a giant A380 jet. That's about the chances, probably even worse than that. Okay, so nature demonstrates that God is real. That's the point. And that's why we wanted to share some of these things, because we need to think. What we're seeing in the book of Revelation, prophecy shows there is a mind behind it, and there's an end point. And because that's going to be part of the scenario in the end, this fight between good and evil, between God and this dragon. Just want to share one more as we wrap the first session up, just to indicate that even the Bible indicates that toward the end of time, technology will be both good and not so good. Have a look at this from the book of Daniel. Remember, we saw the other day that the book of Daniel is a 6th century BC book. We saw clearly from archaeology, the discoveries that have been made, that it was written back in the 500s. Now, when you come toward the end of Daniel's book, it says these words, "You, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until when? The time of the end." And then he says, in the time of the end, he's saying, "Many will run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase." He means two things here, and we're going to talk about the second one later on as we move through this series. But one of the things he's clearly getting at here, as we get to the time of the end, many will be running to and fro. We will talk about when the time of the end begins. From prophecy, it's mentioned in the Bible. But have you noticed that since the Industrial Revolution, we have gone very fast? You think about it. We went no faster than a horse for centuries. And about the last couple of 100 years, we now can have lunch in Perth, breakfast in Sydney tomorrow morning if you get on the red eye special, and then you can be in New York for tea the next night almost. We move so fast around our planet. But our ancestors, they could not walk any faster than their legs would carry them, or a horse if they were lucky to have one. And now today, commercially, they're starting to talk about taking us into space. How about knowledge increase? You have more information on your iPhone than many big libraries have in their libraries. On our iPhones. The information, the ability, the technology that has put us into this place is incredible. In fact, my wife tells me, "Sweetheart, get rid of those books. It's much easier to have it all on your phone." But I like the printed page. All right, one more. John on the island of Patmos. Well, that's some good things about modern science and technology that the Bible indicates toward the end of time. But how about this one? The destruction of the planet. John in the middle of the Revelation, my apologies, that should be Revelation chapter 11, verse 18. "The nations were angry, and your wrath has come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that you should destroy those who" what? Destroy the earth. John here is focused right in the center of the book of Revelation where he's talking about the end times. He says, at this time, you notice, people can destroy the earth. Now, people could not destroy the planet with a bunch of bows and arrows for centuries. Not even with some gunpowder. You'd do a lot of damage, but not destroy the planet. But today, it's different. We have many ways today, thanks to modern technology, to destroy the planet, destroy the earth, as the Bible indicated there. We can do it this way, nuclear. We can do it with biological warfare today, no problem. We can also do it, and we are doing it, all around us. The pollution that's affecting our world today is incredible. I was reading about the Pacific garbage patch. You can see the plastics that are floating around and harm it's doing to fish and so on and animals. Now, I know some people go to extremes, but with no question, we are certainly polluting our world today in quite big style. What's the point? Why these prophecies? I would remind you of what Jesus said himself that we saw the other day. Now, I tell you before it comes. I tell you about these things way back in the past. Why? So that when it does come to pass, when those things happen, you may believe that I am God. So here the prophecy thing and the modern science come together with what we've just seen, for good and for bad. There is no question that God has given us many evidences in this book and in the world of nature that we can know there is somebody out there. It's not just guesswork. The design in nature, what scientists are finding about the fine-tuned universe, many scientists are saying, hey, there must be somebody out there. In fact, some atheistic evolutionists have now become believers. One of the most famous, and it was because of the fine-tuned universe, was, now I've just forgotten his name, very famous one, isn't that really famous? I'll think of his name during the break, okay? But amazing, this man with an open mind had believed in evolution, an atheist he was, and when he began to see the fine-tuned universe, he said, no, this is impossible. There must be somebody out there. Well, let's take a break together, and then we'll come back. The presentation, our last one that we're going to be sharing for today, is this one, the beast of Patmos. We're going to start moving in now on what to understand the book of Revelation more and what's going to happen in the end times. The beast of Revelation, Babylon revisited. Mind-boggling prophecy that you can almost set your watch by, okay?